If I truck in on the particles now on frame 57 and I draw a render region, we'll see that we have a very thick, dense cloud, and now I can jump back into the Material Manager, activate the render tree for the dust material, and on the particle renderer, begin to reduce the density. So I'll take the overall density down by half to soften the overall look. Chop that in half yet again. So here we start to get more of a dusty, softer look. If I take this down even further, and again, remember that the whole idea with dust is to just get a sense of dust being kicked up by the character's feet, not thick, thick streams of particles. So I'll find a happy medium. So 50 might even be a little much. And I'll split the difference. If I need to add a little bit of noise to the edge of the particles, I'll move back into the particle shaper compound and start increasing the irregular shape value to break up the thickness of the particles. So that's already starting to look a little better. I'll add a little bit of cell shape intensity, and there we go. Now we're starting to get a much softer look. The last step I'm going to apply here is to change the overall color of the particles. We haven't really been able to manage the color of the particles yet because we're taking the default gray shape, or the default gray color, and we're not modulating it. So some of the dust particles might be gray, some might be dark gray, some might be closer to white, some might have a touch of brown in them. So we could use a gradient to do this, or we could extract one of the values from our ice tree and use that to drive the color of our particles. If I double click on the particle renderer and access the particle color tab, I'm going to override the particle color using the override particle color flag. So right now we're setting our particle color to this pink default. And what I want to do here is if I double click on the Material Manager to close it, if you'll remember earlier on we used the turbulized color by gradient to set some random colors on our particles at or an animated color on the particles over time, which is what we want to do here. So if I can pull this particle color from my ice tree and use it in my render tree, this is probably the way to go. So it's very easy to do. I'm going to double click to open the Material Manager once again. Open up the Show Hide preset. And if I look under the Attributes tab, I'm going to pull in a color attribute. And I'm going to connect it to the color found under the particle color pull down. Now I'm not actually using the correct color yet. If I double click on the attribute color, I can use the default value, which is white, and we'll get a very light look to our dust cloud. Again, that's not my intent, so if I look at the pull down menu, which attribute do I want to use? I could use the init color, and if I draw a render region now, again, it's kind of hard to see. We're getting a very dark look to our particles, so that's not going to help me. I'm actually going to use the color attribute, which is going to pull in the color from the turbulized compound, and we'll be getting a mixture of these sort of browny grays as well as our grays found from our turbulized color compound. That's more what I'm looking for. So that should give us our final look. The last task here is to go in and render our particles and see what our end result is. So I'll stop the video here, render off the particles, and see what we come up with as our final result.